Hi, friends. Today we're going to be going over how to checkmate with the king and rook. If you like these videos, please make sure to like and subscribe. So, like the king and queen checkmate, the first thing you want to do when you are trying to checkmate the black king and you just have a king and rook is you want to make a box. And our goal is to make this box smaller and smaller and smaller until we force the king to the edge of the board where we can deliver checkmate. This one's harder though. So the king goes to d4. There's really no squares you could go to make the box smaller easily. You could go to rook b3, creating a smaller box, but then the king's going to attack you on c4. So when you can't make a box smaller easily, you need to get your king in the game. And in this case, we grab the opposition. The opposition is when the king are facing each other because kings cannot move into check. So the king can't go here, can't go here, can't go here, both because the rook's attacking and the king is attacking these squares. And this is going to allow our king to defend our rook to make a smaller box. So the king goes to e4. He's trying to not get checkmated. Where can the rook go? Well, now he can go to d3. He's made a smaller box, and the king defends our rook. If the king goes to e5, again, there's no real square to make the box smaller. If you check the king, well, you've not made the box smaller because is the king going to walk into the smaller box? No, he'll be difficult. He'll go to d4. So you've simply made a different box over here. So we do not check the king when he can just choose a bigger box, right? You got to think about the squares you're attacking. We know the king cannot move into check, so he cannot move to any of these squares. So when the king goes to e5, you need to just get your king in the game. In this case, king d3, where we attack these squares here, and the rook attacks over here. The king can go to f5, and now we can move our rook to make the box smaller. It's not the fastest way, by the way, but I just think this is an easy way to repeat. So you're going to repeat this pattern. In this case, the king goes to e5. Now, there's really nowhere to, again, this is our box right now. Oop, sorry. This is our box right now. So if you check the king, he's not going to move into the smaller box. You're just going to make a different box. So here's where you need to learn the concept of a waiting move. A waiting move is when you move your king and you're just passing the turn. If you could here, you would just say, hey, black, you move again. You would want the black king to move so that your king can get more in the game and help your rook create the box smaller. In this case, you can't. So rather than moving your rook, the waiting move you do is to d3. Notice if you move your king anywhere else, you lose your rook. So your waiting move keeps in contact with your rook. It defends your rook. You cannot take this rook because you cannot move into check. And this forces the king to move. So let's say the king moves to e6. Now you have waited a turn to now push back the king and get your king further in the game, allowing you to move your rook up the board and make the box smaller. So if the king goes to f6, now we can repeat the pattern. Rook d5. We are now in this box. King e6. The king's being difficult. Again, we need to do a waiting move. Again, you do not do rook e5 because the king will just move into the bigger box, not the smaller box. So the waiting move you do is king d4, defending your rook. The king moves. Let's say it goes to f6 this time. Now this time, since you went to f6 and not e7, if you went to e7, we would play king e5. But because you went to f6, now we can do rook e5, making a smaller box. Our king defends the rook. King f7. And now we need to get our king closer to help fight back the black king. So we go to e4. King goes to f6. And now we need to do another waiting move. In this case, it's king f4. Still defending your rook and forcing the black king to move. he can only go to these squares because our rook attacks all of these squares. So let's say the king goes to f7. You can't really move your rook anywhere. Again, you're not going to check the king here because the king's not going to help you. You have two boxes. He's not going to move into the small box. He would move to the big box, and this would take a while. So instead, you need to get your king into the game, pushing the black king back. Let's say he goes to g7. He doesn't want to go to the edge of the board. Now we go to rook e6, making the box smaller. The king goes to f7. Again, we need to do our waiting move. King e5, defending our rook. Let's say the black king goes to g7. We make the box smaller. If the king goes to h7, we get our king in the game. He goes to g7. We do a waiting move. He goes to h7. And finally, we're able to trap the king in this box. The only squares the king can move to are h8 and h7. So the king moves to h8, and coming to h6 doesn't do anything for us. If we go to h6, unfortunately, we have stalemated the king. We're attacking these squares. We're attacking these squares. We attack this square. So the king cannot move into check. That is illegal. This would be stalemate. So instead, you need to think about where the opponent king can move and how you can go around the rook. King goes to h7. We go to f7. The king goes to h8. And finally, we are attacking these squares with our king. We do not need our rook to do that job anymore. So rook h6 delivers the checkmate where the king attacks g8 and g7, and the rook attacks h7 and h8, meaning the black king is checkmated. So if we go back to the beginning, sometimes the king is not going to be as resilient. It's not going to try to fight and stay in the middle of the board, which in your games you should try to do. So if we go back and we make a box, sometimes the king is just kind of march up the board for us. And if I just quickly make a smaller box, making the box, we're going to sometimes get to positions where the king, let's say here, here, here. Okay, so we know we want our king to attack the squares in front of the black king, and we want our rook to deliver checkmate. So if we go to g8, or as white here, there's really nothing we can do other than to move our rook or our king. If we go to g6, of course, we lose our rook. So let's say we move our rook to a7 or e5. Both moves are okay, but let's say we go to a7, keeping the king stuck on the edge. Now, the king goes to e8. So we have to think, we would like it to be our turn right now as white. If we could have our choice, we want it to be our turn where we bring our rook here and we deliver checkmate by attacking the back rank, and our king attacks the squares in front of the king. If we go to a7, though, and the black king goes to e8, if we deliver check now, we are no longer trapping the king on the edge of the board, because although we are attacking most of the squares, we forgot to attack d7, so the king is escaping his jail cell. So we need to chase the king until we can do a waiting move with our rook to deliver checkmate. If the king goes to f8, let's say we go to rook e7. I like to make things go forward for me. King g8, king f6, king f8. Gotta do a move. In this case, we don't want to wait on the rank because that allows the king go to e8. So we instead wait on the file. Let's go. We go to e5, g8, g6, f8. Again, if we move anywhere on the rank, for example, d5, we've allowed the king to get out. So instead, here, we are attacking these squares. We are attacking these squares. we need this black king to move to g8. So you need to think, how can I make that happen? Well, right now, your rook attacks these squares, your king attacks these squares, and we want the king to move here. So what you do here is you do a waiting move along the file. So you choose any safe square, of course not e7, you lose your rook. So a square like rook e2 forces the king to go to g8. And now we've gotten that position we want where we attack the squares in front of the king, and the rook is going to move to e8 to deliver checkmate. So I hope this was helpful. We went over the king and rook checkmate, and I would recommend you practice this if you don't know how, as it really helps with the concept of waiting moves, which is important as you get stronger at chess. Thanks. Bye.